Blackbeard died in the surf, with 5 bullets in him and 20 sword wounds. Bartholomew Roberts took grape shot to the throat at 39. Captain Kidd was hanged twice. The first rope broke. You already know how the story goes. It always ends the same way. But the most successful pirate who ever lived died in bed. 69 years old, wealthy, running a gambling house on dry land. At her peak, she commanded more ships than the Spanish Armada and ran a criminal state across the South China Sea. And there's a good chance you have never heard her name. So, how does one person win the single game that kills everyone who plays it? The answer has almost nothing to do with fighting. Her name comes down to us as Zheng Yi Sao. It isn't really a name, it means wife of Zheng Yi. The name she was actually born with, we've mostly lost. She was born around 1775 on the coast of Guangdong, likely among the Tanka, the boat people, barred for generations from owning land or living on it. Before the fleets, before any of it, she worked on a flower boat in Canton, a floating brothel. That is where her story usually begins. A woman with nothing, at the bottom of everything. In 1801, she married a pirate commander named Zheng Yi. The popular version wants this to be a love story. What actually happened was a merger. By 1805, the two of them had pulled off something no pirate on that coast had ever managed. They took dozens of rival, murderous gangs and folded them into one organization. 6 fleets sorted by colored banners: red, black, white, blue, yellow, and green. Not a mob, a confederation. Then, in 1807, Zheng Yi was killed in a storm at sea. This is the moment a pirate empire is supposed to fall apart. The leader dies, the captains turn on each other, the whole thing dissolves back into the water it came from. His widow did something stranger. She didn't seize power, she secured it. She tied his adopted son and chief lieutenant, Zhang Bao, to her, first as her right hand, eventually as her husband, and through him she kept the loyalty of every captain underneath. Within a year, she commanded between 400 and 600 ships and tens of thousands of pirates. Some counts run as high as 70,000. That is more fighting men than most European nations could put to sea. But here's what almost everyone gets wrong about how she ruled them. The story we want is a warrior queen. Swords up, cannons roaring, an empire taken by force. That is not how she won. Zheng Yi Sao did not run a warband, she ran a bureaucracy. She issued a written code of laws and enforced it to the letter. Steal from the common fund? Death. Go ashore without leave? Death. Rape a female captive? Death. Pirates. Pirates lived under harder law than the villages they were robbing. And the robbery itself she rebuilt into something closer to a tax system. She opened offices on land, clerks, stamped receipts, salt merchants and fishing villages bought safe passage, and the paper they were handed was honored all the way up the coast. She wasn't raiding the economy of southern China, she was quietly becoming it. The Qing court finally moved against her. In 1808, her fleets wrecked roughly half the imperial provincial navy and killed its commanders. A year later, a single season of raids left an estimated 10,000 people dead along the coast. And the government did something that tells you exactly how badly it was losing. It went begging to Europe for help. Portuguese warships, British guns, anything that floated and fired straight. Hold the picture there for a second, because you already understand the next part. You've lived a small version of it. You have stayed in something too long. A job, a plan, an argument, a relationship, past the point where the clear-eyed move was to walk away. And you didn't walk because walking felt like losing. Quitting felt like admitting the whole thing had been a mistake. We are wired to read, "I've come this far," as, "so I have to keep going." Most people ride that feeling straight onto the rocks. She was sitting on the largest pirate fleet in human history, tens of thousands of men who would have followed her into the guns, and she read the feeling for exactly what it was. Between 1809 and 1810, her fleet hit something her code couldn't fix. The Qing had hired Portuguese warships, and European guns simply outranged and outhit anything bolted to a junk. At the mouth of the Pearl River, the Tiger's Mouth, her ships were cornered and blockaded against Lantau Island. But the real crack wasn't on the water. It was inside her own confederation. Her fleets had begun turning on each other, and the Black Flag Squadron defected to the government outright. Her fleet was still enormous, she was still feared. She was also, for the first time, doing the arithmetic and not liking the total. And the thing worth remembering about Zheng Yi Sao is not a battle she won. is the one she chose not to fight. In 1810, she walked, unarmed, into the Governor General's office in Canton. She brought 17 women and children with her, and she negotiated. She walked out with a full pardon for herself and for most of her fleet. She kept her fortune. She kept 24 ships. Zhang Bao was handed a commission in the very navy he had spent years sinking. She didn't go down with the empire. She sold it back at the top of the market. She settled in Guangzhou and opened a gambling house. She raised a family. She paid her taxes. She got old. In 1844, she died quietly in her bed at 69, the one ending a pirate is never allowed to have. The men whose names you know all died in the surf, on the rope, inside the story. She got out. And getting out is the one thing a legend can never forgive. That is the real reason you grew up knowing their names and never once heard hers.